In a quiet corner of Lungoka, a humble village wrapped in golden grasslands and birdsong, lived two youthful hearts, deeply tangled in love. Their names were Zuberi and Kiano. So profound was their bond that even the breeze seemed to hum their names, and the villagers often smiled just seeing them pass by. Zuberi was a radiant girl, her eyes dancing like fireflies and her grin bright as the morning sun. Kiano, with his gentle strength and open heart, was the kind of young man who made elders nod in approval. Every day, Zuberi and Kiano could be seen wandering hand in hand through Lungoka's red dust paths, their voices bubbling with laughter, echoing like flute notes at dawn. Their love was not loud, but it glowed, a fire that didn't burn but warmed everything near. People said their love could make even the oldest tree bloom again. Kiano's closest companion was Tay, his boyhood friend who felt more like blood. Tay stood taller and leaner, with curious eyes that missed nothing. The two had grown up chasing monkeys in the trees of Mbula Grove, daring each other to leap from rocks, and laughing like wild parrots by the Nair stream. The villagers of Lungoka were enchanted by the way Zuberi and Kiano moved, as if a single rhythm guided them. Their presence was a fragrance, like fresh rain on dry earth. When they danced in the central square under the stars, time seemed to pause. Kiano's flute would sing, Zuberi's feet would glide like silk, and Tay would join them with his drum, beating the rhythm of youth. Even old men with gray whiskers tapped their feet, eyes misty with memories. Children giggled, copying Zuberi's twirls with clumsy joy, while young men watched Kiano with quiet envy. Girls whispered about love that's strong, hoping one day their hearts would be claimed like hers. Life in Lungoka pulsed with their happiness, but joy, like a drumbeat, cannot last forever without pause. One afternoon, under the shade of the baobab tree, Zuberi leaned close to Kiano, her eyes bright and insistent. "Let us seal our love," she whispered. "A blood vow, a bond no shadow can break." Kiano blinked, uneasy. "A blood vow?" He echoed. The thought clung to his spine like cold mist. But Zuberi's voice was sweet honey, full of conviction. "If our love is real, we must prove it, make it sacred, unshakable." His heart stirred with doubt, but her words wrapped around him like vine. Eventually, he nodded. Together they slipped into Mbula Grove, where only the rustling leaves watched. Zuberi pulled a tiny blade from her cloth pouch, its edge catching the last amber rays of sun. "Now," she breathed, her hand trembling with emotion. Kiano shut his eyes, inhaled the damp, earthy scent of the grove, and let her press the blade. To his thumb, a drop of crimson appeared. She did the same to herself. They pressed their wounds together, mixing the blood. With their thumbs joined, they drew each other's names on their skin with smears of red. Their voices merged in quiet declarations. "Our love flows like Nior stream," Zuberi said. "Our love burns like the sun in harvest," Kiano replied, still unsure, heart pacing. But then Zuberi asked more too much. "Say it, Kiano." She whispered, "Not even death can pull us apart." He hesitated. Her eyes locked onto his like a hawk's. "I don't need words to prove I love you," he muttered, but she insisted. He gave in. The words stumbled from his lips, dry as dust. "Not even death can separate us," Zuberi smiled. Her eyes shimmered with something fierce and final. "It is done," she said. "Now nothing can break us." Later that evening, as the crickets hummed and fireflies blinked over Lungoka, Kiano sat with Tay by the fire. "Tay," he said, voice low, "I did something." Tay looked up from tuning his drum. "Speak, brother." Kiano rubbed his hands, nervous. "Zuberi and we made a blood covenant." Tay froze. His fingers stopped mid-motion. "You did what?" "It's nothing," Kiano laughed awkwardly. "Just a little promise, a ritual." "For love," Tay's brows furrowed. "Blood promises are not games, Kiano, especially with someone as intense as Zuberi." You're overreacting, Keanu said, waving it off. We just said a few lines. What kind of lines? Keanu hesitated. That our love is forever. That not even death can. Tay's face turned ashen. Brother, that's no small thing. You don't understand what you've spoken into the wind. She may love you, yes. But obsession is no love at all. Keanu laughed, brushing off the warning. You worry too much. We're happy. But happiness has brittle bones. As the village prepared for Zuberi and Keanu's grand wedding, music and color filled the air. Palm leaves were woven into arches, and the women pounded yams with laughter. The day was near. Then suddenly, Zuberi grew weak. At first, it was just tiredness. Then came the fevers, the aches, the trembling. She couldn't eat, couldn't walk. Keanu stayed beside her, fanning her brow, holding her hand, whispering prayers into the dark. The village's healer, Farah, came with satchels of roots and bitter powders. She brewed potions under moonlight, chanting words older than memory. But Zuberi only grew colder, quieter. Her spirit dimmed. Keanu wept by her mat day after day. Please, Zuberi. Fight. Don't leave me. You are my breath. Zuberi opened her eyes, just barely. I don't know what's happening. Keanu, she whispered. His chest ached like thunder. She was slipping, and no vow could hold her. 2 weeks before the wedding, as Lungoka buzzed with final preparations, Zuberi's body surrendered. She stopped speaking, stopped breathing. Her lips stilled. Keanu screamed, Zuberi, don't go. Please, he held her hand, now still as stone. Her beauty remained, but her warmth had fled. The hut fell silent, even the wind seemed to mourn. Farah stepped back, eyes shadowed. Her journey has ended. Outside, the drums of joy had stopped, though the wisdom of Farah and the sacred hands of Lungoka's most gifted healers could not bring Zuberi back. Keanu's spirit shattered like dry calabash on stone, and grief swept through him like floodwater, choking out the light in his soul. He wandered through his days as though trapped in a mist, each breath a weight, each heartbeat echoing an unbearable silence where once Zuberi's laughter had lived, and the whole village mourned with him, their sorrow hanging like heavy smoke over the red dust roads. Even Tay, his ever-constant companion, could not reach him with words or presence, for Keanu had lost more than a beloved. He had lost his very center, his guiding drumbeat, and when the time came to prepare Zuberi's body for burial, his mind drowned in memories of their blood vow, and the funeral passed before him like a fever dream, her body wrapped in white cloth, her face still beautiful but lifeless as moonstone, and Keanu's wails echoed through the Mbula Grove as they laid her to rest, a cry that split the air like thunder, as if the earth itself grieved with him. In the days that followed, his tears fell like the Nile stream during flood season, his voice lost to mourning, but slowly, painfully, the sun began to pierce through the storm clouds of his sorrow, and though the wound in his chest never fully closed, time, that slow, quiet healer, dulled its sting, and Tay remained a steadfast shadow, never pushing but always near, while the elders gathered by evening fires to speak of Zuberi's laughter and kindness, their stories weaving a tapestry of remembrance that helped Keanu find his way back to the living, until he could once again feel the sun's warmth on his skin and hear the wind rustle the leaves without breaking into tears. And it was during one of these gentle forest walks that he met Oboma, a girl whose eyes sparkled like dawn and whose smile stirred something inside him he thought had died. Oboma was quick-witted, tender-hearted, and her laughter held music Keanu had long forgotten, and soon they were sharing hours beneath the trees, walking the same trails he once walked with Zuberi, and though guilt pricked him at first, as if loving again betrayed the past, Oboma's presence taught him that love was not a betrayal, but a gift, a way to honor life, and as their bond deepened, they began to dream together of a future, of a wedding filled with joy and dancing. And yet, Shadows crept at the edges of their happiness, for Oboma began to speak of haunting dreams, of something unseen chasing her through night silence, dreams that made her wake with sweat on her skin and dread in her chest, and though Keanu held her close and whispered comfort, telling her it was merely the stress of planning, she could not shake the fear, whispering that perhaps it was more something real, something dark. But Keanu only laughed gently, kissing her brow, calling it imagination's trick, promising her safety with a warrior's heart. Yet her dreams grew worse, deeper, more terrifying, and one night she dreamed of walking the wedding path only to see not Keanu but a dark figure waiting, its eyes glowing like coals, its grin sharp with menace. And when she screamed, no sound came, and she awoke gasping, trembling, still seeing the monster's face behind her eyelids, and though she masked her fear with practiced smiles, the toll became visible, her once radiant eyes now dulled, her skin pale as morning ash, and Keanu noticed, though he still believed it was only nerves, assuring her that once they married, peace would return. Yet Oboma knew in her bones that something malevolent watched her, followed her, waited, and she feared that their union was awakening something not of this world. Then came the wedding day, bright with sunlight and bursting with music and cheer, the people of Lungoka dancing and singing with joy, celebrating new beginnings, until the sky, without warning, darkened like a shroud had fallen, and the warmth fled as a cold, unnatural wind swept through the gathering, making the hairs on every neck stand, and the villagers' cheers turned to gasps, then to shrieks, as smiles fell into silence and celebration twisted into horror. For from the edge of the clearing stepped Zuberi, her eyes no longer filled with love but blazing with fury and betrayal, her presence sucking the joy from the air like a storm-devouring light. And Oboma froze, eyes wide with terror, recognizing the figure from her nightmares, the one that had haunted her sleep. It was Zuberi, not gone but changed, not resting but risen with wrath. Keanu's face drained of color as he locked eyes with the ghost of his past, unable to move, breath, or believe, and the villagers tried to flee. But their limbs refused them, as if the very earth held them in place, and the air turned thick, sharp, difficult to breathe. And when Oboma tried to speak, her voice failed her, swallowed by fear, while Zuberi's gaze never wavered, boring into her with cruel fire. And the darkness pressed in, wrapping around them like a serpent of smoke, the villagers' screams rising like a terrible choir of dread. And in that instant, Oboma knew the truth. Zuberi had never let go, the vow had never broken, and now she had come to claim what she believed was still hers, no matter the cost. Her voice floated through the dark like a breath of frost on a harmattan night, chilling the spines of all who heard her as she whispered, "Why, Keanu? Why are you binding your life to another?" But Keanu stood firm, the strength in his gaze like that of a lion preparing to defend his pride, and with a voice steady as a drumbeat he declared, "Zuberi, you no longer walk among the living. Your time in this world has passed, and I belong here, now with Oboma. The living do not dwell with the dead, and I have found joy again." And as he spoke, Oboma's heart pounded as the truth struck her like lightning. This was the spirit that had clawed at her dreams, the shadow that had chased her through sleep. And when Zuberi's eyes landed on her, dark and burning with rage, Oboma felt her courage stir like fire from dry grass, while Keanu continued, voice full of ache yet unyielding, "Return to the ancestors, Zuberi. You and I are no more, and Oboma and I deserve peace." But Zuberi's face twisted into something wild, her eyes glowing with a fury that cracked the air like thunder. "You think you can replace me with this girl?" she snarled, her voice coiling through the crowd like a serpent's hiss. "You think this child knows anything of what we were?" And though fear gripped her heart, Oboma stood tall, her voice trembling but bold. "Maybe I don't know your past, Zuberi, but I know Keanu's love now. I know he is mine, and I am his. And I will not let your darkness devour our light. And Zuberi laughed, not with joy, but with the sound of dry bones rattling in a hollow cave, a laugh that sent shivers across the wedding crowd. Defeat me? She spat. I am risen from the roots of the dead, and I have come to claim what was always mine. His love, his spirit, his very breath. And then she laughed again, high and piercing, her tears now crimson as they streamed from eyes like dying embers, and she moved toward Keanu, slowly, as if floating on wind, whispering mockingly, "No connection, you say? You moved on, you say? But what we had was eternal." And Keanu's heart broke at the sight, but he stood his ground, voice cracked with pain. "Please, Zuberi, let go. Find your rest among the ancestors. You are not meant to stay." But she only laughed harder, her voice rolling like thunder through the stunned villagers. "No!" she cried. "You are mine, mine in life, mine in death, mine forever." And her words seemed to carry the weight of a curse, pressing down on everyone like a heavy fog. And Oboma's breath grew shallow as she stared at the terrifying specter, unsure whether to scream or run. And Keanu, voice shaking, pleaded, "Stop, Zuberi, please. You're hurting them. You're hurting me." But she howled in reply, the sound not human, not spirit, but something in between. And the air twisted around her like a storm in human form, when suddenly the village's high priest stepped forward from the trembling crowd, staff in hand, his eyes locked on Zuberi with solemn fire, and with the strength of generations behind him. He said, "Child of the earth, your feet no longer belong to this ground. Return now to the realm of the dead." But Zuberi snarled, her voice sharp as a thorn. "And if I don't?" Her tone laced with venom, and the priest lifted his staff high, his voice rising with ancient power. "Then I will return you myself, for I am not alone. The spirits of our ancestors stand with me, and their will is stronger than your wrath." And she screeched in rage, her eyes glowing brighter, "You think you can cast me away? You think you can erase me?" And just as he began to chant, calling upon names lost to time, a strange pain lanced through Keanu's thumb, and when he looked, his skin was bleeding, blood pouring as if the past itself had been torn open, and gasps rose from the villagers as they watched in horror. And the priest's voice faltered as realization dawned. "They are still bound," he whispered. "Their blood vow still breathes." And Zuberi grinned, her face lit with terrible triumph. "We are one, Keanu," she hissed, holding up her thumb where blood still marked the cursed bond. "You made me a promise. Not even death could break us." And Keanu's knees weakened at the sight, understanding that their sacred vow had become a trap, a net that still held him tight. And Zuberi's steps grew quicker, eyes fixed on him with a hunger that chilled the bones, and Oboma, seized by terror, turned and fled, her screams slicing through the night like a wounded dove, while Keanu tried to follow, but his foot was locked in place by an invisible grip, held by the power of the vow. And Zuberi laughed again, her voice rising high and wicked. "Let the wedding continue." She howled, her arms stretched wide like a dark bride returned from the grave, and the priest stumbled backward, his eyes wide with horror, shouting, "Abomination!" as if the very word could cleanse the air. "Such a thing has never walked our land since the first drum was carved from tree." The chief priest called on the ancestors, but Zuberi could no longer hear him. Her entire spirit was locked onto Keanu, her eyes glowing with a burning obsession that made his chest tighten with dread, his heartbeat thundering in terror as he stood paralyzed in the grip of a bond he could not break. He knew then that the blood covenant had tied him to Zuberi for all time. And Oboma, witnessing this horror, ran to the chief priest, eyes soaked with tears, and collapsed before him, in desperation, begging, "Please, Great One, there must be something, anything you can do. Only you can save him." And the priest, his face full of sorrow, said, "Child, I fear the hour is late. Keanu and Zuberi are entwined by a curse older than memory, a bond now sealed in spirit, and not even death has loosened it." And Oboma gasped, horror spreading across her face as she cried, "No. He is mine, he chose me. I will not let her take him." But the priest shook his head, voice grim. Love does not always conquer spirit magic, and this one was forged in blood. And Oboma trembled at the thought that Zuberi's soul might consume Kiano's forever. Her heart pounding as she whispered, "Then I must stop it. I love him too much to let him be taken." And as her pleas cracked the air, the priest paused, torn between fear and duty, before sighing, "I treasure life, but your love burns. Bright child, I will help you." And Oboma's eyes lit with hope as he added, "There is one path left, but it is dangerous. We must seek the counsel of the oldest soul in Lungoka." And so they crept away from the chaos of the cursed wedding, weaving through huts and startled guests until they reached the edge of the village, where an old woman of 119 seasons lived, her home sagging like it whispered secrets to the wind. She welcomed them with eyes that seemed to pierce the veil between worlds, and said, "I have felt the storm in the spirit wind. Come, sit, and I shall tell you what was buried." And as she stared into the distance, her voice fell into the myobia rhythm of prophecy. "This is not new. This curse once haunted our ancestors, but they locked its memory away, hoping it would never rise again. Yet here it is." And Oboma's fists clenched as she asked, "How can we end it?" And the crone whispered, "The bond will seal completely if the marriage rites are finished. Once he is declared her husband, Kiano will be lost forever." And the priest, eyes set like stone, replied, "Then we must act now." And she nodded, voice firm, "You must be swift and brave." And so they returned, breathless and resolved, slipping into place just as the marriage host raised his voice to complete the ceremony. "I now pronounce you," when the chief priest thundered, "Wait." And the villagers gasped, turning to him in disbelief, while Zuberi's face twisted with rage, her spirit snarling with fury. But the priest quickly said, "Let me offer a blessing as our village's guardian," and he raised his staff, sending a flash of bright light across the sky that dazzled the crowd, giving Oboma the chance to rush behind Kiano, whispering urgently, "The curse lives in the thumb, you must sever it," the one marked with her name. And Kiano's eyes widened with shock, but he nodded, his soul steeling itself for the agony to come. And Oboma handed him a blade, her eyes filled with tears. "Please. It's the only way." And just as Kiano was about to strike, Zuberi's eyes blazed and she let out a furious scream, flinging the knife from his hand with a gust of her spirit's power and lifting Oboma into the air with invisible hands, twisting her body like a puppet. And Oboma shrieked, her limbs bending unnaturally, her pain echoing through the village like a wailing bird. And Kiano begged, "Zuberi, stop! You're killing her!" But his words only fueled her madness, and Oboma, her face twisted in agony, locked eyes with him and whispered, "Goodbye, my love." Her voice barely more than air, and Zuberi's power began to crush her slowly. When Kiano, with one final cry, sank his teeth into his own thumb, biting down with all his might, tearing it from his hand in a flood of pain and blood. And as the cursed flesh fell, Oboma dropped to the earth, free. And Zuberi screamed, a sound so sharp it pierced the sky, as her power cracked, her form flickering. And in that moment, the chief priest threw a white powder of ancestral origin upon her, chanting with all his strength. And Zuberi howled. Again, her body dissolving into ash and shadow, her curse shattered, her spirit banished from the world of the living forever. Silence fell, then cheers broke out, and Kiano ran to Oboma's side, wrapping her in his arms as tears streamed down their faces. And when their lips met, it was like the first light after a storm, sealing not only their love, but their triumph. And the wedding continued with joy and singing, drums thundering into the night as the people of Lungoka danced and celebrated a love that had endured even the darkest spell. And so Kiano and Oboma lived on in peace, their hearts forever bound, their love deepened by pain and protected by courage, never forgetting the lesson that true love must walk wisely, for even the smallest vow may cast the longest shadow.